What's up, guys? It's December 17th and the patch notes are hitting for PoE 2 Early Access. It's patch 1.0e, so let's just go over it. Added the capacity to fast travel between checkpoints within an area. You can now select checkpoints which bring you to your map overlay, allowing you to select another checkpoint you have discovered in an area to travel to them immediately. Many more checkpoints have been added to areas, generally at all the entrances and exits to areas. Meaning if you find those first, you're able to instantly travel to them if you choose, to go back and explore an area. Passive point respeccing has been made cheaper, especially at higher levels. It had a relatively aggressive curve, getting more expensive with character level. We've flattened the curve, so it doesn't exponentially grow as much. For example, this should generally result in an approximately 40 to 50% less gold cost for respeccing between the start and the middle of the in-game progression. Added a shortcut to open a skill's advanced information display by right-clicking on the skill on your skill bar. You can now compare equipped flasks when using a controller. Added chance shards to the currency exchange. Added a button to travel to your guild hideout when interacting with a waypoint. In-game and monster balance. Maps no longer have an additional elemental resistance penalties inherently applied at Tier 6 and Tier 11, or higher maps. It's now consistent across all of the in-game. Critical strikes for monsters now deal 40% less bonus damage. Chaos damage now scales less aggressively over the in-game. The ground laser and ground lightning abilities used by the rune knights now deal substantially less damage. The waystone modifier that adds burning ground to your maps no longer increases its coverage area with higher tier waystones. The siphon's flash charge modifier on monsters now drains 10 times less flasks per second. This was unintentional. Disabled the volatile crystal modifier, to be revised in future pending telegraphing improvements. The Trail of Fire monster modifier now deals 30% less damage and lasts for 3 seconds. It used to last 5. The Trail of Lightning monster modifier now lasts for 4 seconds and it used to be 8. The Trail of Ice monster modifier now lasts for 4 seconds and it was also 8. The purple explosives created by Volatile Plants modifier on rare monsters now deals significantly less damage, thank fucking God. Lowered the baseline monster density of breach encounters, primarily by reducing the frequency of the elite monsters appearing. Fixed an inconsistency in the different types of packs that could spawn during breach encounters. You should now see more different types of monsters appearing in an area. The volatile spawns by the Volatile Fiend's Trial of Chaos modifier now accelerate over time. The Stormcaller runes Trial of Chaos modifier are now smaller, take longer to charge up when standing inside, and give more time to escape once triggered. The runes now also get larger as the modifier is upgraded. Improve the hitboxes on a number of abilities used by Blackjaw the Remnant. The crossbow variants of the Decrepit Mercenary monsters that deal fire damage now deal less damage. Okay, here's the one, Trial of the Sekima's improvements. Honor damage now scales down based on distance to enemies. You now take up to 35% less honor damage when in close range, tapering as you're further away. Fixed a bug where damage over time was dealing 3 times as much damage to honor as intended in the Trial of Sekima's, and fixed a bug where honor resistances was only applying to 2/3 of that damage. Skitter golems no longer use basic attacks and now just explode, as their attacks were largely unavoidable when in melee range. Serpent Claw Burrow and ambush attacks now have improved visual telegraphing and cannot be used from far away. Volcanoes created by Rattlecage's Fissure Slam now last half the duration. Added keyword hover for the honor mechanic in the Trial of the Sekima's. Skill balancing. Rolling Slam's second slam now deals 50% more damage to heavy stunned enemies. Ice Shot Shards now gains additional projectiles as it levels up. Ice Shot Shards now targets within 90-degree cone. Ice Shot Shards now travel further base. To be tested and iterated. Ice Shot arrow and projectiles are now smaller and the same size as other arrows. Electrocuting arrow base duration to 25 seconds from 12, doubling quality bonus also. Barrage now has 25% less damage on barraged attacks. At level 1, same scaling per level. Barrage now has +2 repeats base from +1. Shock chain arrows, shockwaves now deal 100% more damage. Sniper's Mark cooldown reduced from 6 seconds to 2 seconds at all levels. Combat Frenzy can now gain a Frenzy charge no more than every 3 seconds from 7 seconds at level 1, to approximately 1.5 at level 20. Stormcaller's arrow bolt now gains additional impact radius as it levels. Vine Arrow's damage over time has been adjusted. It is now slightly higher at lower levels, and substantially lower at higher levels. The intention of this ability was that you poison it, to spread poisons, as opposed to the vine itself dealing immense amounts of damage. Tornado Shot's damage over time has been adjusted. It is now slightly higher at lower levels, and substantially lower at higher levels. The intention of this ability was to propagate your other bow skills, as opposed to doing an immense amount of damage itself. Magnetic Salvo can only use your stuck lightning arrows as opposed to those created by your party members. Increase the damage growth per level on Unearth, Bone Storm, Bone Cage, Bone Blast, and Power Siphon results in approximately 50% more damage at gym level 25. Increase the damage growth per level on Essence Drain, Contagion, Profane Ritual, and Chaos Bolt results in approximately 33% more damage at 25. Bone Cage base critical strike chance has been increased to 15% from 13%. Skeleton Arsonist spirit costs now match Frost and Ice Mages from level 5 onwards, making them more expensive while keeping their costs early game the same. Bone Offering Explosions now have 15% critical strike chance. Resonating Shield, Shield Charge, and Shield Wall now have 6 to 8 added physical damage per 15 armor on your shield at all levels. Resonating Shield Radius increased to 2.3 meters. Shield Wall Explosions increased to 4 meters from 2 meters. Shield Wall can now create a maximum of 2 walls. Siege Cascade now has an attack time of 75%. Siege Cascade now searches for targets in a 3.5 meter radius. Siege Cascade now has 50% more damage against immobilized enemies. Siege Cascade's explosion now deals 167% more damage. Siege Cascade now has 30% less reload speed. Siege Cascade's quality is now 2% damage against immobilized enemies, per quality. Stormblast Bolts has 5 bolts in the clip. Stormblast Bolts now has 30% less reload speed. Plasma Blast now has 47% more damage, and its initial hit is 25% less damage with its explosion, causing it to rely less on colliding with walls to deal enough damage. Artillery Ballista's explosion radius increased to 1.8 meters. Artillery Ballista's damage increased by approximately 21%. Gathering Storm's Perfect Dash now deals 53% more damage. Wave of Frost now has 275% more freeze buildup at all levels. Staggering Palm's duration now scales with levels. It has 6-second duration at level 1, scaling by 0.2 seconds per level. Staggering Palm's projectiles now deal 20% more damage at all levels. Concoction skills from the Pathfinder Ascendancy class now consume 3 charges from mana flasks. Their damage has been increased and deal approximately 66% more damage when the skill is at level 20. In addition, the base added damage has been increased by at least 50% for all Concoction skills, with Poison and Bleeding Concoction receiving greater damage buffs. Fulminating Concoction now has critical strike chance of 8%. Shattering Concoction now has critical strike chance of 1%. Explosive Concoction now has 100% more chance to ignite enemies, and 100% more magnitude of ignites inflicted. Fulminating Concoction now has 100% more chance to inflict shock, and Shattering Concoction now has 100% more freeze buildup. The Hunter's Talisman passive, Skill Notable, now grants +1 charm slot. The small passive skills leading up to it now grant the stat it formerly gave. The Charm Helper text has been updated to indicate that you cannot have more than 3 charm slots unlocked, so that we can add more sources of it in the future. Added a new lightning damage and electrocute cluster to the passive tree in between the ranger and monk sections. The Heavy Frost Notable passive skill now causes hits to ignore enemy resistances of frozen enemies if the resistance values were positive. Supercharged Slam now builds up stages slower, but gains 40% more damage per stage. This may display as 20% still incorrectly until a later patch. Electrocute is now 25% harder to build up, but the damage penalty has been removed from the support gem. It is now more difficult to chain freeze enemies by reducing the amount of freeze buildup applied after a freeze has been applied. Next we have some support balance. Added the Trimmer support gem, which can be used to give up to multiple more aftershocks to skills with a damage penalty. Added the bidding support gem, which can be used to give more damage to the command skills of the supported minions. The fire exposure, lightning exposure, and cold exposure support gems no longer penalize damage of supported skills. They now have a mana cost multiplier of 120%. The electrocute support no longer penalizes damage. Instead, it now prevents the supported skill from being able to shock. The lacerate support now grants 50% chance to bleed. The envenom support now grants 50% chance to poison. The impact shockwave support has an aftershock radius of 2 meters. The bidding support now grants 30% more damage to minion command skills. The considered casting support now only supports spells you cast yourself. It also now grants 40% more spell damage. The aftershock support now has 25% chance to cause an aftershock. Ooh, that's nice. The mobility support no longer has damage penalty, but applies 30% less movement speed. The ricochet support now has 40% chance to chain from terrain. The withering touch support now has 25% less damage. The ferocity support now has 40% more skill speed when consuming a frenzy charge. Change the wild shard support gem to fire projectiles in a circle instead of a spiral pattern. The decaying hex support now deals 60% of intelligence as chaos damage per second. The stomping ground support shockwave now deals 80 to 120% of your strength as physical damage. Item balance. The charm modifiers on belts have been substantially more common and now appear at much lower levels. The of symbolism modifier now appears from level 23 onwards, and the of inscription modifier now appears from level 64 onwards. The unique item, the adorned, now applies the time lost jewels. The time lost jewels modifier of regeneration now applies 3 to 7% increased life generation rate to notables in radius, from 1 to 2%. Existing versions of this item will not be updated unless you hit it with a divine orb. Bug fixes. Fixed a bug where the unique item Meligaro's Virtuosity was granted the wrong amount of critical damage. Fixed a bug where the Crumbling Walls Atlas passive notable was applying to maps that didn't contain breaches. Fixed a bug where the stat granted by the Organized Forces Atlas passive notable was causing less waystones to drop due to trying to upgrade them to a tier that didn't exist. Fixed a bug where interactables would remove the player from demon form. Fixed a bug where certain rare monsters would respawn at checkpoints after consuming their corpses. Fixed a bug where leveling a skill gem incorrectly displayed a level change when it was supported by gems which granted additional skill levels. This was purely visual. Fixed a bug where Unearth didn't work with the Sacrifice Spirit gem. Fixed a bug where Elemental Expression skill from the Invoker Ascendancy class had an incorrect hitbox. Fixed a bug where the Monk Ascendancy node Embrace the Darkness would desync when losing life and energy shield. Fixed a bug which prevented party members from entering the fight once it had begun. Fixed a bug where the Cosmetic Equipment UI was missing the tier selector from some slots. Fixed a bug where the Trial Master encounter dialogue failed to play. Fixed a bug where the Rising Tempest support where it was giving more damage per elemental skill used, rather than more damage per elemental type that was used. Fixed a bug where pathfinding could cause jittering of the character in some cases. Fixed a bug where destroying items and hideouts wasn't possible. Fixed a bug where Frostwall segments could leave phantom walls, causing invisible blocking. Fixed a bug where implicit abilities on non-weapon unique items required a low level to use. Fixed a bug where some spirit gems displayed an incorrect error message. Fixed a bug where Arbiter of Ash area level wasn't being increased with difficulty. Fixed a bug where emergency reload wasn't put on cooldown if you were using 2 emergency reload skill gems. Fixed a bug where the energizing bolt flask effect didn't work. Fixed a crash on gamepad where concoction skills from the Pathfinder Ascendancy class would cause a crash when changing areas. Fixed a bug where some players would disconnect when trying to enter maps, in the Ziggurat Refuge, or guild hideouts while in a party. Fixed a bug where the explosion of the armor explosion support could trigger itself recursively. Fixed a bug where Ice Shot was unable to cause freeze buildup. Fixed a bug where some volatiles in the Trials of Chaos would follow the player up the elevators. Fixed a bug where inscribed ultimatums and And Jin keys, dropped in Cruel, would incorrectly tell you that you could get an ascendancy point by completing them, even if you wouldn't. Fixed a bug where ballista skills didn't work with tornadoes created by a tornado shot. Fixed a bug while using gamepad where the hide sockets option did not work. Fixed a bug when using gamepad where you couldn't see distilled emotions recipe on the passive tree. Fixed a bug on gamepad where you couldn't access the portal access settings while viewing the hideout stash. Fixed a bug where creating solo self-found characters wasn't possible when using a gamepad, while migrations are disabled. Fixed a bug when using a controller where you couldn't use the shortcut bind to open chat. Yeah, that shit sucks. Fixed a bug when using a controller that caused it to take multiple attempts to change the tier selector of microtransactions. Fixed a bug when using gamepad where you couldn't set an individual price on an item in a premium stash tab. I never ran into that. Fixed a bug when using a gamepad where you couldn't socket jewels into specific unique items. Fixed 12 client crashes and fixed 3 instances crashes. That's a lot of notes to dissect, but from the outside perspective, this looks like a W. I'm about to go jump in the game and continue and see what these changes bring. Alright, have fun and stay safe, my friends.